Kyle, do you want this down and under and back on top?
What's going on, guys? We're down here in Southern Ohio, starting a really big job out here. Pretty cool opportunity for us. We're going to be putting in 11 miles of trail, busting it open with the Takeuchi and the forestry mulcher. Larry's going to come back through with the Cat D3 and do all the grading and water bar installation. So that's the first stage of the job. After that, we're going to come back through and replant all 11 miles with a Pheasants Forever seed blend, lime fertilizer, pretty much everything.
Yes, this is a super cool opportunity to get out here on this collaboration between the Division of Wildlife and Pheasants Forever. One of the main objectives of this, like Kyle mentioned, we're putting in fire lines. So this is going to be cool access trails, but they're actually going to be out here doing prescribed burns and using these as their holding lines. So the strategy as far as where they're going is 100% tied to the burns and these large burn areas. So their objective really is to get as many acres within their burn units as possible. So the main wildlife species that they're managing for actually here is Bobwhite Quail, and there's a wild population of them here. You can't just show up and hunt them. They actually have a drawing, pretty limited opportunity, because they're really just wanting to see this bird survive here and be successful. But it's really cool that this project's going to be basically the tool that allows them to put habitat out here for that species.
Yep.
So we're all dieseled up. Kyle's got the forestry mulcher teeth all sharpened up. We're getting ready to get started. Mile 0 of 11. You think this is going to go pretty smooth, Kyle?
We hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. Follow along. Hope you guys enjoy seeing some of this equipment in action, and hopefully we can show you guys some cool burns that happen out here in the future.
What do you think? Is it a pass?
The middle of March now. We're here wrapping up the first unit of I think 4 or 5 sections that we're doing. As you can see behind me here, Kyle's been through here and then Larry has already followed him up with the dozer. This first section was about 2 miles. It was a mix of pushing through a lot of invasive brush and some wooded sections, and then a lot of these field edge sections as well, which separates this burn unit behind me, the future burn unit, from obviously what's not going to be burned. Today I'm finishing up seeding, which I started yesterday. The seed mix is a mix that Pheasants Forever provided. It's just gonna keep this trail right here easy to maintain and green. And then Ben's on the other side of this hill, and he's got a spreader and he's putting lime down and fertilizer. Those are just some of the specs that the wildlife area and Pheasants Forever agreed upon for some extra insurance on this trail installation. And it's a big project, and you wanna make sure that what these trails are putting in are actually gonna have some growth and be easily maintainable in the future. I'm just standing here waiting for Ben to come down and refill me with some seed, and we're gonna keep going for the day.
It's early July, back out here on the Firebreak project. It's the very last day of this, so we're just doing our final check, and this thing's gonna be a wrap. So we got started on this in the end of February. Here we are at the beginning of July. So we were able to get over 11 miles of trail in, cut into pretty much these specs, what you're seeing behind me here. On average, we had to have no more than a 10% grade. So we had to cut into the hill a little bit. That's just to create a flat and stable enough surface that a tractor can be used to come back in here and do brush hog mowing. They're gonna use these trails to create management blocks, and within that they're going to be doing prescribed fire. They have several gravel roads cutting through this area. The fire break is what they needed. There's different parts that have private property or different breaks where they didn't necessarily want to burn, and the focus area was on, you know, one side or the other. In that type of situation, they needed these breaks. These can be mowed. They'll be kept really short. The day of the burn, they'll probably have them mowed down super low, and that's going to work as a holding line when they're doing their prescribed burns. Right behind me, you can see a water bar cutting across the trail. All a water bar is whereas the trail comes down and you have significant slope, you are cutting in a very small amount to create a micro ditch there, taking some of that soil, burning it up, and then with a bulldozer, we just track that in, pack that down really nice, and you got to make sure you have an outflow here. But as the water is coming down this hill, it's going to hit this ditch, channel off right here, and it's not going to continue to run down the trail, creating a ravine and washing out the trail substantially more. There's a bit of a formula we had to use to determine how far these should be spaced out. Rule of thumb a forester taught me one time is every time you have a drop of about a man-sized height, so about a 6-foot drop as you look down the trail. Give you guys an example as we look back up the trail here, but every time we're dropping about 6 feet, we should be adding water bars. So the steeper it is, the more water bars we're going to use. So out here on the side, you can see a lot of what the native vegetation look like. There's also a bunch of non-native species out here that they're managing with drone herbicide applications, which is really cool. They were able to do some areas that were pretty heavily infested, flew over them, treated all the woody invasive shrubs that were out here. There's a lot of invasives out here. There's also an amazing array of native species out here too. Right here's a pretty common one that's pretty pesky that they're trying to get out of here. This is called Cerezo lespedeza. There's also a lot of autumn olive throughout here. You can maybe see one down there in the background. You can see the vegetation type. We pretty much were going through just raw woods or field sections. Kyle led the charge with his forestry mulcher, and we used that to chew up all that brush so we didn't have a whole bunch of slash right next to the fire line here. Something you never want to do, because if you're doing a burn, you don't want that catching on fire right next to your line. So we had to keep everything pretty clean. Here's a little spot. You can see some disturbance next to the trail. That's because there was brush or overhanging trees. So we had to get that all cleared and back. So there's a good line that, you know, they're doing their burns. There's nothing catching on fire, jumping over their lines. So once the forestry mulching was done, we came in with the D3 dozer, got a nice wide blade on there. So we were able to grade these in, just started cutting in here into these hillsides, moving a lot of that dirt over to the side, and then packing the whole thing in, and then pretty much establishing the water bars for the necessary spacing. Once we were done, because this area is so steep and really pretty extreme drive, and even when you're in a side-by-side, we decided that we were gonna straw this by hand, which sounds like a tedious process to straw 11 miles, but working in a small group of 2 or 3 guys and using a side-by-side or four-wheeler with a trailer, we were able to move through the unit, drive through ahead of time, stage out all the straw bales, and then a team of 2 or 3 people could work through together, just hand strawing down through. It really went pretty quick. We were able to do this entire section I'm standing on now, which was over a mile and a half, in a pretty short day with just a couple people throwing straw. So not too bad. They do make straw blowers and different things like that, but there's sections in here that are very, very steep. A lot of water bars, and we just decided it was best to just go through, stage the straw bales, and then just have everybody go through. And by doing it that way, you know, we were able to control how much straw we were putting in where. So within these burn units, the main species they're managing for out here is Bobwhite quail. I saw multiple areas where we actually saw quail right hanging out in the spots they've removed and killed invasives last year, and got to see a couple quail fly out over those areas with those dead brush piles all over the place. It's actually creating really, really good habitat already, and it's creating a disturbance in the landscape that is creating new vegetation, a new flush of vegetation, new community of plants, and allowing things to just be recycled and stay healthy and not get too built up for too long, which is a really common problem with wildlife habitat, especially here in Ohio. We get a lot of rain and we have a pretty long growing season, so if you don't do any disturbance, these areas get continually thicker and thicker and thicker, and that becomes less ideal for small, you know, little game animals like a rabbit or a quail or a small turkey poult. So this is going to benefit a wide variety of wildlife out here, and really looking forward to seeing how this area changes over the years. This was a necessary project to get this whole area headed in the right direction. They had to have these fire breaks to really get their intended fire management plan in action. But just wanted to show what the process is. Trail systems are critical for maintaining the landscape, and if you don't have to go to this extreme of a measure of cutting it in, that's great. That's always ideal. But out here, they needed to be in very specific areas based on their management objective for these bigger zones. And getting a real permanent trail in here like this was critical. They can actually drive these things. They can maneuver around here quickly when they're doing a burn, and they can travel through here safely. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing that equipment in action and seeing how some of these trails get made. If you got any questions on making trails, be sure to drop us a comment. Can't wait to come back and see what these areas look like once they get burned, as the plant community responds and the wildlife respond. If you need help with prescribed burns, putting in fire lines, or creating trails on recreational property or any other property, be sure to get in touch with us. Jump on the website, nativelandscapesohio.com. Drop an inquiry in the contact section. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you guys on another video here soon.